Hello everyone, this is Cephalon and welcome to my Warframe video. Today we're taking a look at one of the biggest glow-ups a secondary weapon has ever received, the Ocucor with the Sentient Surge Augment. If you've been ignoring this weapon because constantly rebuilding the tendrils felt annoying, well, those days are pretty much over. Sentient Surge completely changes how the weapon plays, turning it into a beam weapon that can shred entire groups of enemies while barely asking you to think about reloading. The Ocucor is a beam weapon that deals primarily radiation damage, but what really makes it special is its homing tendrils. Every kill creates an energy tendril that automatically seeks out nearby enemies up to a maximum of 4 active tendrils. Normally, those tendrils disappear whenever you reload or empty the magazine, forcing you to start all over again. That's exactly where Sentient Surge comes in. Instead of constantly rebuilding your tendrils, every kill now helps sustain your magazine, letting you keep all 4 tendrils active almost indefinitely as long as you're getting kills. On top of that, each active tendril grants bonus critical chance and status chance, reaching an impressive 240% to both stats once all 4 are active. It completely transforms the weapon from something that feels clunky into something that snowballs harder the longer you keep firing. One thing worth keeping in mind is that the Ocucor has a built-in damage ramp. When you first start firing, it only deals 20% of its full damage, then ramps up to 100% over about 0.6 seconds. If you stop firing for around 0.8 seconds, the damage slowly falls back down over the next couple of seconds. In practice, this just means you want to keep that beam active as much as possible to stay at maximum damage. This is the build I've been using throughout this video. Feel free to pause and screenshot it now if you want to copy it later. With that out of the way, let's break down the reasoning behind each mod slot. We'll start with Galvanized Shot, and this one is absolutely mandatory. It grants 120% damage for every unique status effect on the target. Since we're applying puncture, radiation, heat, and viral almost immediately, you're looking at roughly 480% extra damage before even considering additional status effects from teammates or companions. Galvanized Diffusion is another must-have. Besides giving up to 230% multi-shot at maximum stacks, multi-shot on beam weapons like the Ocucor effectively double dips on status damage, making it even stronger than it already looks on paper. Of course, Sentient Surge is the star of the show. Keeping your magazine alive means keeping your 4 tendrils alive, and those tendrils are what push your critical chance and status chance through the roof. For critical damage, I recommend Primed Target Cracker. Thanks to the puncture changes, the Ocucor can actually give itself a flat 25% critical chance after applying 5 puncture procs. Because of that, Primed Target Cracker ends up being about 3% stronger than Primed Expel Grenier or Corrupted, even if you're not using Arcane Avenger. If you're getting external critical damage from something like Dagath's Grave Spirit or Tenacious Bond, then Primed Expel pulls ahead in overall DPS. Lethal Torrent is another staple. Fire rate makes the beam feel much smoother, while the extra multi-shot once again boosts both direct damage and status damage. If you're already getting plenty of fire rate from sources like Wisp's Haste Mote, Harrow's Penance, Arcane Velocity, or Reinforced Bond, then you can consider replacing Lethal Torrent with Primed Expel for slightly higher damage. For your elemental setup, Pistol Pestilence paired with Ice Storm gives you viral while also adding valuable status chance. Viral is incredibly important because at 10 stacks it increases health damage by up to 4.25 times. Ice Storm also has the nice bonus of increasing the amount of ammunition restored per kill, making it even easier to keep the weapon firing without interruption. Primed Heated Charge finishes the build by massively boosting both your direct heat damage and your heat status damage, which ends up being one of the weapon's biggest sources of DPS. Heat procs also have effectively infinite scaling since they don't have a cap on most enemies. For the Exilus slot, you've got two solid options. Ruinous Extension is my preferred choice because the extra beam length makes the weapon feel much more comfortable, especially in larger tile sets. If you find yourself struggling with ammo economy instead, Primed Ammo Mutation is a perfectly reasonable alternative. There are also a couple of easy variations depending on what faction you're fighting. Against Corpus or Murmur enemies, swapping Primed Heated Charge for Primed Convulsion lets you build Viral and Electric instead. Certain Corpus and Murmur enemies are especially vulnerable to electric damage, so this setup performs better there. If you make this change, you'll also want to swap your Arcane from Cascadia Flare over to Secondary Merciless, since Flare relies on heat damage. If you're lucky enough to have a Riven, the dream combination is multi-shot, critical damage, and fire rate. Toxin, base damage, or critical chance are all excellent secondary choices as well. Critical damage lets you replace primed target cracker, which is generally the weakest damage slot in the build. A toxin roll also frees up your elemental setup by replacing Pistol Pestilence. For Arcanes, Cascadia Flare is my overall recommendation. It gives an enormous 480% damage bonus that's incredibly easy to maintain because heat procs are constantly being applied. Even if the stacks fall off, you'll usually rebuild them within a few seconds. Secondary Fortifier is another fantastic option if you'd like some extra survivability. Since the Ocucor barely requires precise aiming once the tendrils get going, stealing Overguard happens very naturally. If you're using Fortifier, swap Primed Heated Charge for Primed Convulsion. Secondary Encumber is the interesting endurance option. After about 2 or 3 seconds, it can apply enough unique status effects to push Galvanized Shot all the way up to around 1,560% bonus damage. The catch is that only one enemy among your primary target and the 4 tendril targets can receive Encumber's extra status effects at any given moment. That limits its effectiveness in regular missions, but against tougher single targets that stay alive longer, it becomes much more valuable. Finally, there's Secondary Merciless. It's still a perfectly solid choice, providing up to 360% bonus damage. The only downside is that the stacks decay every 3 seconds, making it less consistent than Cascadia Flare during longer fights. Overall, the Sentient Surge Ocucor is one of those builds that just keeps getting stronger the longer you stay in combat. Once those 4 tendrils are online, the weapon practically starts clearing rooms by itself while you simply keep the beam pointed in the general direction of your enemies. It has fantastic crowd clearing, excellent scaling thanks to heat and viral, and enough flexibility to adapt to different factions and playstyles. If you've got an Ocucor sitting in your inventory collecting dust, now is definitely the time to give it another chance. Thank you for watching. Remember to leave a like if you found this video helpful, and subscribe for more Warframe guides. See you in the next one, Tenno.